Doing a PhD is a crazy making process. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty in terms of what actions that you should choose. And these actions have a very, very long outcome. And people struggle their whole life trying to figure out what is the right path to go forward. And so they often have a lot of deep scars in terms of managing this process. I struggle with it, and I think most people struggle with the process. I'm a professor, and I've gone through it, and I continue to do research every single day. So I understand what you go through, and I want to talk about some of these scars that you are going to feel and go through, and then hopefully get you to change and walk away with some quiet confidence. So the key thing that you're going to forever feel is you're always behind. Right from the beginning, when you get into it, you'll realize that there is never enough that you can do. There's always more work around the corner, and somebody someplace is going to tell you that you should be doing more work. Now, there's another thing that ends up happening is that there is a lot of stress that's involved, and sometimes people take it out on others, whether it's in the review process, whether it is colleagues, whether it is peers, and they take it out in different kind of ways that, I think if you were to study this, it would be called microaggressions, but it's where people do things that are not necessarily kind and generous. The other thing that you end up doing is that you're chronically feeling the sort of dark cloud over you, that you have this kind of like weird responsibility that you need to uphold, and that there is some sort of duty for you to contribute. And if you don't do that, then you're a failure. So what do I mean by that? That means that many of us feel like we can't seek out other avenues or look at different opportunities because we'd be considered sellouts, or we're no longer a good academic if we look at other possibilities. That might be going into industry, that might be, doing things that are non-standard, other than doing the whole research process. And you really, really feel this. This is a deeply ingrained thing. The whole process is very much crazy making, where a lot of people think that they know what the right paths are, but almost nobody knows what the right paths actually are. And so they want to demonstrate, and there's all these power struggles that happen to demonstrate what these right paths actually are. And the truth of it is that it's just doing more of the same and doing it for a long time and finding yourself. And that's where I want to begin in terms of how do you smooth over these scars that you often have that stay a long time, where you feel that you're inferior, you feel like you're never good enough, you feel like if you don't perform, that people will judge you. And this is very deeply ingrained. It's all public and everybody knows. So this is where the first thing I want you to think about is, how can you walk quietly and confidently without feeling any of those feelings, where you view yourself as simply walking forward? And so this is where I want you to think about life completely differently. So right now, the way that you're thinking about it is in terms of outcomes, and that if you don't achieve these outcomes, then your life will fall apart, and all of these things. But if you view yourself as a hero, where you're playing a video game and you are the hero in the video game, and you have this quiet confidence, you already know what's going to happen, and you're going to get to the end, all of a sudden your life changes that much more. If you have this protection between you and the outside world, where you don't treat the outside world so seriously, you kind of discount it and you know what's going to happen, then all of a sudden you feel good about yourself. And it requires you to train your mind where you simply say, I'm not going to play that, and I'm going to play my own game. I know what the outcomes are, and the outcomes are me walking quietly and confidently to the end, whatever that end is, where you have this internal peace of mind where it's me against the world. You know, some of this you might have heard is kind of like almost like Buddhism. It's almost like Stoicism. It's being like a Stoic from many, many years ago, where you just simply walk forward. And I want you to think about that there is a tremendous amount of chaos that's going on, and you don't have to absorb those things. Now, the other thing I want you to practice is finding core groups of people that you can rely on. And I think that there's two simple tricks that I've learned on. One is do little small tests where you see how people actually react to something, where you get them to do something and you see if they actually do it. And often they won't. And then you know what that relationship is going to be like. You know, there's this funny meme that I saw where it's, you know, working on a paper together is the same thing where people say, let's create a band together. You don't know who's actually going to put in the work and what's actually going to happen throughout the process. So you have to often protect yourself against that from the struggles that you're going to face. And there's lots of struggles. Now, the second thing that I think is incredibly important that I've really started to pick up in the last few years is watch people's reaction when you say, are you a kind person? Or I only want to be around happy people. Or, you know, I want you just to watch and see and watch facial expressions in terms of how they feel about the world and what the response is. And if you ask these things like, I don't want any drama in my life, you will see an expression, you will see micro expressions where sometimes people struggle with those. And you know what the priority actually is. Sometimes people can trick you. That's definitely true. But often, you know, if you were to look at psychological measures, for example, they're very direct, right? They're not hiding anything. And they're very direct because often people do answer in a way that you would know how they're going to respond. Often if you ask them these very simple things, like, are you a nice person? Are you kind? Do you help out other people? Are you going to do something without anything in return? They will answer you directly. Here's how they're going to answer you. If you have a written response, they will never respond. It will disappear. If you have you ask them directly, you will see the response instantly in their face where they struggle with that because they often are very strategic. And I want you to think about those, how you can deal with this, and just simply ask people how they respond to things, what is going to happen. And I know that there is a chunk of people that this will never work for. I completely understand that because it takes time to reveal what they're going to do. But you can get a sense of what is going on behind their minds when you actually do that. Or that you don't like strategizing, for example. Or that you are an honest person. These very simple things. See how people are going to react and what the response are. And test and see and go little bit by little bit and see what happens. If they actually respond in a positive way, in a kind and generous positive way, or if you see small actions like, you know, sometimes they say, well, I need to go volunteer or anything like that. I need to go pick up, when they're older, I need to go pick up my kids. Sometimes you can get a response, a read from these kind of things because they see generosity as a central part of who they actually are. And I want you to take that going forward and internalize this. If you do this, You will heal from many of these scars. You will find people that you can work with quiet confidence and generosity, and you will find people that will support you along the way. It's hard, but you will identify those folks and do well as you walk forward with quiet confidence.